So you want to be a better winger in rugby. Now you've clicked on the right video because today I'm going to be going through my most important tips and piece of advice for wingers out there in rugby who are trying to level up their own game and become a better rugby player. So I've created a series on YouTube where I've gone through every single position on the rugby field, looking at pieces of advice and tips I can give to players who play those positions to help them play at a high level. Now today we're looking at the winger, and let's just get straight into the video and look at the first tip that I have. And that first tip that I've got written down is having clinical finishing. Now, obviously, a winger's main job and their main priority is being able to score tries. That's your job. That is why you're on the rugby field. Now, it is definitely a skill in itself, being able to, execute and score tries. But there's a certain way of going about it. I think making sure that you're calm and collected once you have the ball in your hands and knowing what to do comes with having really good spatial awareness, knowing where you are on the field, and also doing a bit of scanning, identifying where the gaps in the field are for you to exploit and ultimately lead to you scoring more tries more frequently. I think it's really important as well to have a good awareness level of what's going on in front of you. If you're able to, kind of read the body language of some of these defenders who come up against you in terms of, where their shoulders are, where their hips are, and recognize which shoulder is better to exploit. And hopefully it will allow you to run at the defender so that they're in a position where, their hips turn and they're not actually able to make an effective tackle on you. I think the best wingers out there in the world are able to do that because they do that at pace as well. So really work on, your game awareness, and also doing a lot of scanning during training, looking and analysing defenders' body positioning, which can help you make more informed decisions when looking to execute, and hopefully you'll be able to score more meaningful tries this way. The next thing I've got written down on my list is owning the air. Now, as a winger, you will more often than not be in a position where you are under the high ball. Now, being able to catch a high ball successfully is a skill within itself, and it requires a lot of training and a lot of practice, but also you got to have really good hand-eye coordination. That just comes with being able to catch a rugby ball. But I think if you're able to be a confident player under the high ball, you're reliable under the high ball, and, it's something that will not faze you. It almost, adds to your own favour as a winger. It's going to give you more confidence, and it gives you more opportunity to, have a meaningful impact on a counter-attack as well, if you're able to gather that ball successfully. So definitely I would recommend to the wingers out there, practice a lot of high ball catching, not only in your training sessions, but also, in the warm-up before a game, because, the conditions could be very different from training to a game. You could be training in nice, dry, daytime conditions, but then if you're playing a game where it's windy and wet and at nighttime, it could be a completely different dynamic. You got to be able to adjust. Let's say, for example, you are playing a game where there's floodlights, and, you need to be able to identify where the ball is in the sky and not lose it in the floodlights, for example. That's just one example, but making sure that all the boxes are checked off, so that once you're under that high ball, you have all the confidence in the world, and you're not going to be second off when you're competing for that ball against the opposition players. The next thing I'm going to talk about is pendulum defense. Now, obviously, players in the back three are going to know what pendulum defense is. It's basically where you are filling in the space for where the fullback isn't, and that just makes sure that the backfield space isn't overly exposed for the opposition to kick and create attacking momentum by letting the ball bounce and letting them chase onto it. So I think not only being able to recognize what space to fill in the back line is really important, but making sure that you're communicating well with your fullback, making sure you're aware of what they're doing and they're aware of what you're doing will create a really good bond between you two, and making sure that you're aware of what's going on and aware of what the attack might do as well. A bit of premeditation can sometimes come into play here as well, kind of reading and scanning, because now you're in the backfield, you have a really good view of what's going on. But I also think it's important when you're, performing the pendulum defense, you're talking to the players in front of you, letting them know what's going on, what might happen, and, really giving a lot of communication can make it a lot more easier for the defensive teammates in front of you. Now, the last thing I have wrote down on my list today for the wingers out there is you don't just want to be sitting on the wing. A very common stereotype, and something you hear by a lot of wingers, especially at the lower levels and younger age groups, is, all they did was sit on the wing and they didn't really, get much of an eye into the game. Now, this could be one or two reasons. Number one could just be, you just didn't get the ball, and that's fine. But there's a reason behind that. That's because you didn't become, aware of this fact that, the ball wasn't reaching you due to the fact that, it could be wet conditions and it's hard to, pass the ball consecutively to get it out to the wing, or for another reason, could be anything. But once you recognize this, you need to be a good enough player to realize this and act on it. I'm talking about being proactive, getting involved in the centre of field of play. If you need to run over to the other wing, do it. Create opportunity, create moments for yourself. And that's what the best wingers do. If you look at, for example, Louis Barbery of France, I might have butchered his name there, but you know who he is, the famous French winger who wears the red scrum cap on. He creates moments by getting into really good, meaningful positions. And if you're able to do that as a winger, whilst also being able to, get back into the meaningful position you need to be when you transition into defence, that's going to make you a really good player, because you're going to be in a lot more spaces of opportunity for you to execute and also exploit the defence. And hopefully, you're going to be scoring a lot more tries because you're actually going out your way to look for opportunities, and you're hungry to score, you're hungry to cross that try line and touch the ball down. So that is probably my most important tip as well. Just really being busy, being hungry to score tries. And yeah, that rounds off my video for today for the wingers out there who are trying to improve and get better. If you found it useful, please leave a like on this video, subscribe to my channel as well. And I just want to thank you guys for watching this video. And with that being said, guys, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and thank you very much.